What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. Sooners on the Side Postgame podcast. I, myself, Ryan Chapman, here alongside John Hoover. John, say hello to the masses.
Hello to the masses.
We got Carson Field here for his first OU Texas. Carson, what's up?
It was fun. I'm a little sunburnt, but ugly game, ugly football, but it was a good time.
Fun for you, not for any Oklahoma fans listening. The Sooners lose 23-6, and boys,
Say it at the top.
Brent Venables has a Texas problem. It is official. Oklahoma had 2 weeks coming into this game. They didn't play a real opponent last week. They played Kent State. I understand that Michael Hawkins Jr. played against Kent State, so it's not like the offense had 2 weeks to prep for Texas with the healthy John Mateer, but you had 2 weeks. Texas had to go halfway across the country to the swamp, got their asses kicked. Their offensive line looked terrible. The defense had gashes here and there at times. Oklahoma got their quarterback back, John Mateer, by Thursday night. He was upgraded to probable. Brent Venables in the pregame interview on the sideline with Holly Rose said John Mateer, good to go, no limitations. And Oklahoma is unable to score a touchdown. 4 trips to the Cotton Bowl for Brent Venables as the head ball coach in Norman. And I know he's a defensive guy, but right now he's only a defensive coordinator. He's back demoted to Oklahoma defensive coordinator because shutout a couple of years ago, extenuating circumstances. I get it. You don't have to lose the worst, most lopsided victory in the history of the rivalry, but you didn't have to win, but maybe don't lose 49-0. Gets the miracle. Dylan Gabriel might be a magic worker as we saw him get NFL starts. That's the only way that Oklahoma's been able to score a touchdown. Last year, 34-3. This year, 23-6, Hoover. And it's a game that Oklahoma defensively controlled in the first opening portions for the first quarter and a half or so, but Texas finally found a foothold, cut it to 6-3. Brent Venables can't manage the clock. Ben Arbuckle can't manage the clock. Whoever it is, someone can't manage the clock, and suddenly you look up and Oklahoma runs 4 plays in the third quarter, and Texas seizes momentum and doesn't give it back.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusing stuff about this particular game, and one of the things that we mentioned in the postgame stand-up was how does the unequivocally ask any national college football writer, any national podcaster, any national pundit who the best defense in college football was. It was Oklahoma. How did they go from being dominant in every series, in every game, with an occasional here or there, right? How did they go from being dominant to getting their butt kicked up and down the field, 75-yard drive, 12 plays, 14 more plays? The players were frustrated. The players were like, that's on me, I missed some tackles. That's on me, I shouldn't have jumped off sides. We got to have better communication. I saw Kendall Daniels said, we got to have fewer my bads on the defense and just go out there and punish people. The defense that we saw the first 5 weeks was not here today. And Brent Venables, when I asked him the question, what the heck happened after those first 3 series? Because Texas had its way offensively with Oklahoma. I asked him what happened. He said, that's on me. I let my guys down, among other things. But basically, he said the same thing that the players did. We didn't tackle. We jumped off sides. We had penalties at the wrong time, stuff like that. And it's got to be aggravating for him because here he is, the defensive coordinator / head coach. And
Defensive coordinator.
/ always comes second / head coach comes second here. And it's just got to be frustrating for him because they had done so much right before today, and then Texas comes out and just exposes them. Texas only had 300 yards of offense, guys. That's great if you're Oklahoma's defense. They got the offense when they needed it, and they got third down conversions when they needed it.
Yeah, it was really staggering just how the defense flipped. I think that's what stood out most because it looked great early on. I thought it was a win to hold them to 3 points late in the first half. Peyton Bowen made that excellent play in the end zone on what was a really decent pass from Arch Manning. That was a pretty good ball. Liked the cross the body throw, and it should have worked, but Bowen was there. I thought that would be a turning point for the defense, and it just wasn't. You see the missed tackles. Weisner goes off. They only finished with a little over 130 yards rushing. It felt a lot worse than that, though. It felt like when they really needed something, especially in the final 30 minutes, they were able to get it.
Well, the issue, though, with that big, long drive is, for what we've seen this year, it's like, hey, look, Oklahoma gives up the one long drive in the first half, and then they find a way to get off the field, force them to a field goal. You had seen earlier when John Mateer threw that opening interception, which we'll get to all the John Mateer of it all. It was Oklahoma able to force a long field goal. Mason Shipley, who we had talked about coming into this game, the big portal addition for Texas, untested, left a couple short from 55, kicking
been
into the
worse.
Texas end zone. Yeah,
Right.
kicking toward the Texas goalpost, and you're sitting here going, okay, this has been the formula at times for Oklahoma's defense this year. Dominant, and then bend but don't break, and with way more dominant possessions than that. Hoover had the stat about points allowed versus 3 and outs, all that stuff. The issue was that this is a heads-up game, right? Sark is calling the Texas offense. Brent Venables is calling the Oklahoma defense, and the really good coaching matchups, you can tell. Who wins it? Well, okay, you saw one drive. What happens? Can Texas seize a little bit of momentum? Oklahoma just totally craps the bed trying to manage the clock at the end of the first half.
What was
Texas
that?
gets the ball back, and they march, like you said, who straight down the field, this massive 14-play, 75-yard drive. They then come back around on the next possession, 65 yards in 13 plays. That one ends in a field goal. Again, another instance of that. But of that
13-6, and it felt like it was over.
yeah,
Right?
of that 65 yards, 30 of it came on the ground, and it wasn't just like the big Weisner run where Mason Thomas has him bottled up. It was consistent. Like, you were finding 6-yard run, 7-yard run. Texas was finally getting into rhythm. This Texas offensive line, that is terrible. It is still an awful offensive line. It's not suddenly better. And then here's the killer, the backbreaker. Texas enters the week 115th, 115 out of 134 in the FBS on third down. In the third quarter alone, they go 7 of 8. Texas goes 8 of 13 on third downs in the second half. A lot of that due to Arch. Arch Manning was fantastic under duress, moving the pocket, finding ways to just, even if it was an incompletion, roll out and get the ball to the sideline, things like that. But in that third quarter, he came alive. He had a 3rd and 8 on the shadow of his own end zone. Hit another 3rd and 8 later in that drive. He moved the chains on the 3rd and 7, moved the chains on a 3rd and 5, and then I thought the thing that kind of perfectly encapsulated the second half is when the game was already over. This is after the punt return. Arch breaks it free. He's running down the sideline. Probably not going to get to the end zone, but he's able to slide, and he has the wherewithal because Arch, under all the duress of this game, cool, calm, and collected, able to slide. You look over to the other side, John Mateer, and I'm not saying this is like the moment was too big for John Mateer, but he was certainly like a little bit more inaccurate. He's never been fully accurate. There's always been 1 or 2 throws he wants back, but I think it was clear that though he's not making excuses for it, not 100% as far as throwing the football, but the Oklahoma offensive line, once Oklahoma couldn't establish any run, they got cratered. Texas, Pete Kwiatkowski leaned back and said, okay, not worried about the running game, let's just get after Mateer. Mateer got into a little bit of the, not necessarily happy beat, but he was just on the run, having to make things happen, and Arch, basically cool, calm, and collected, didn't make the big mistake. John Mateer made the big mistake a couple of times, and you look at it, and that's the formula for losing the Texas game, throwing a punt return, and for Brent Venables, unfortunately, that formula, you had 2 weeks to prepare for this football game.
So let's talk about Mateer. The thumb miracle. I wrote about it 17 days ago. He was asleep on an operating table, right, and was getting his thumb sliced open. Getting screws put in. And getting. I mean, think about that.
Nails per the Chipotle employee. Nails,
screws.
Golf with screws.
So he comes out here 17 days later, and he played okay for the most part, but the throws that he missed, guys, he says there was no pain. He says there was no problem with the injury. He said there was no problem gripping the football. Okay, so then if that's true, if we take John Mateer at his word and say there was no lingering problems with maybe the rust from having 2 weeks off, right, 17 days off, or the injury itself, or the ability to grip, or accuracy, there's no issues. What are we left with? We're left with the moment was too big for him. I'm sorry, but it's one of those two things.
Yeah, I lean more toward he just wanted to take the blame on his shoulders.
I agree.
I think he's meant for these big moments.
I agree.
Obviously, it's the Red River rivalry. I think it's expected for a quarterback to play a little bit worse than they're usually capable of.
Yep.
He played a lot of bit worse than he's capable of today.
Make heroic plays.
Right.
They do one or the other in this game.
There were times that you were like, okay, is this finally where John Mateer has his Red River legacy drive, and it just never happened?
Never happened.
The misses, to your point, John, were really bad. And I think it says a lot about John Mateer's leadership, assuming it is that he just wants to take the blame. Yeah, my thumb's not great, but I wanted to play in this game. It says a lot about his leadership, but...
Completely agree. If you're a champion quarterback, you don't sit here and say, well, guys, I did have thumb surgery 17 days ago. No quarterback's going to say that. So the moment was too big for him? No, it wasn't. The moment was too big for his thumb.
Yeah, I agree.
Those balls he was throwing, the one he missed in the end zone at the end of the first half, he had a receiver wide open and he threw it to the other guy. They were 15 yards apart. And so what that tells you is, sorry, he's a superhero. He's a mutant for coming back in 17 days. I don't know if he's got the, but he's a mutant.
Wolverine.
Right. But I don't think he was ready. Let's call it what it was. I don't think he was ready. The option being, if you're Oklahoma and Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables, Michael Hawkins. Was he ready? He's played in this game before. I wrote about it. He's played in this game before. Arch Manning hasn't. Maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Well, you've been very down on Michael Hawkins. I think he, especially in the fourth quarter when the game was over and the offense was going nowhere and Mateer was getting beat down on every play. Guys, coaches, pay attention. Arbuckle, Venables, whoever. Take your star quarterback with the bad thumb out of the game and put your backup in to finish that situation. He took a beating in the fourth quarter for no reason with a bad thumb.
I don't think that Michael Hawkins Jr. was going to be any better in this game. It's because of what we've seen from Hawkins at this point in his career. A lot of arm talent, but he gets sped up pretty quickly. And I think that gets to why I believe he would not have been any better in this game is the root of the problem, which is Oklahoma's offensive line's awful.
Right.
They can't.
That's coaching negligence to put a guy out there coming off of thumb surgery. What if he wrecks his thumb? What if we find out the little bleeding that TV talked about? What if we find out that his thumb is not, because we didn't know after the Auburn game that he was hurt in the first place. What if we find out Monday that he's out for the season?
Well,
it's the Sam Bradford Landry Jones thing from 2009 all over again.
You got to go with the guy who's going to give you a chance to win the game. And Michael Hawkins, the way this offensive line play was not going to. I mean, you saw Mateer hanging in there and trying to deliver balls.
Fourth
Michael
quarter,
Hawkins,
though, should have been Hawkins' time.
Yeah, once the punt return was done, the game was over. Yep. But the issue that Oklahoma's having right now is a massive one. Everything that you guys are talking about, I think, is correct, and it leads into this. We've seen, like Brent Venables has said, you don't have to play perfect to win games. We proved that in the Michigan game. We've proved that in the Auburn game, and he's right. But what Oklahoma's dealing with right now is the defense has been good enough that John Mateer can play almost perfect on drives here and there, and he can deliver a big, nice, long drive against Michigan. That ending drive against Michigan is the only time the offensive line has stepped up. Otherwise, it's been John Mateer making things happen. It's been Jackson Arnold moves down the field. John Mateer sacks up with the broken thumb and says, "We ride," and he boom, 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 leads Oklahoma down the field. Right now, John Mateer is being asked to be Baker Mayfield. He's being asked to be Kyler Murray. Yeah. And John Mateer is a really, really good college quarterback. He's not 2015 Baker. Well, he's not 2017 Baker, where he had been in that system for 3 years and is a higher level, higher caliber. He's certainly not 2018 Kyler Murray, and that is the root of the issue, is that Oklahoma has no running game at all. It was fully contingent on John Mateer against Michigan and against Auburn, the only two actual defenses they played. They were out today, and I know the sack yardage makes this sound worse because they got sacked 5 times, but Oklahoma averaged 1.6 yards per carry. They tried everything. They threw Xavier Robinson out there. They threw Torrey Blaylock out there. They tried 3 snaps of Jade Knott, and Jade Knott ran away from Ant Hill and crapped his pants. So he didn't follow him, but he also didn't play with any physicality. He then drops the swing pass after that. Right now, Oklahoma, their offensive identity is John Mateer, go win the football game, and with a banged-up thumb, with Pete Kwiatkowski in a really, really good defensive line, in a chaotic atmosphere, and with an Oklahoma defense not playing perfect, John Mateer, hurt, is not that guy, and that is an issue. And this Oklahoma offensive line, was it hurt last year? Yeah, but coming into last year, we didn't think it was going to be any good anyway. And this group, they lose a Derek Simmons. Derek Simmons had played better in the first quarter. They were getting beat all over the place.
I'm worried that's a long-term thing, by the way. Just from where the guy landed in the middle of his back of his calf, that's a bad spot.
Tavechi talked about him jumping off sides, things like that. They tried Daniel Akinkunmi for a couple of plays in place of the suit. Bill Bedenbaugh, Jaden Jackson and David Stone might need to play offensive line. The book on Bill Bedenbaugh, we always talk about the old cliche, he tinkers by Texas, he figures it out. They've got their guys figured out. Fasusi's going to be a good player here in a couple of years. They stink. They're bad. They're terrible. They got outplayed by one of the worst lines in the offensive lines, when you just compare the offensive lines, like Texas' offensive line also bad, also has issues, playing just as good a defensive front. And Carson, Texas was able to find something and move the ball, even if it was for a couple of drives on the ground, to support Arch Manning and give him time to find his stride and play well.
Yeah, no, that was easily the most shocking part of this game to me. It's not all that shocking that an injured John Mateer doesn't have the game of his life, his first time playing in this rivalry. This defense, I mean, John said this a minute ago, but ask anybody that's watched a lot of college football so far this year, who's the best defense in college football? Most people would probably say OU, and rightfully so before this game. They just didn't look the part. The pass rush wasn't getting home, which is crazy when you think about the guys you have there. R. Mason Thomas, Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams. List 5 other guys that have been excellent pass rushers for the Sooners. And really, there weren't a whole lot of great plays. R. Mason Thomas had that sack on Manning. I think that was in the first half.
Only sack of the game.
Only sack of the game. And they just weren't getting home. And I don't think it's just this, yes, Texas's offensive line is so amazing. I think it was, I don't know what it was. I really don't. That's the biggest thing that confuses me.
Here's the deal. I'm going to take this from a layman's angle. I'm not a football coach. So when we say Sark outcoached Venables, that's obvious. Look at the scoreboard, right? Here's what Sark did that I thought was brilliant. Slowed the pace down, reduced the number of not possessions that Oklahoma had offensively, but maybe the number of possessions that they had defensively. Okay, does that make sense? Maybe not. They made the most out of their 3 possessions. They went 75, 80 yards, whatever, 65 yards for 13 points. They got the big punt return. But where Sark slowed it down, get this, there were 10 offensive possessions in this game. 2 of those were Texas kneel downs by the Longhorns. 10 offensive possessions, so basically 8 possessions that mattered. 8! And he said that was our game plan, was to slow it down, huddle up, make sure Oklahoma wasn't getting in a rhythm. And the way he slowed it down, that took Oklahoma's defense out of their rhythm. And I don't think Brent Venables was ready for that. I don't think he adjusted to it. And the players never caught on.
He also, I thought Sark did a really good job of not putting Arch in like too much danger, not putting too much on him, while also moving the pocket. Because when we're talking about sacks and quarterback hurries, there were still pressures. Arch was under duress a lot in the first half. Even the third down convergence that he was really, really good on in that third quarter, it's like, hey, Oklahoma is a beat away from hitting home, and then it's the absolute backbreaker because suddenly Arch is putting a dot right on the sideline or things like that.
For the D-line that's right there in his face, and they can't get him down.
And then we saw something pop up today that has only popped up in like 1 or 2 plays throughout the season, but was a backbreaker, and that's tackling. Oklahoma did not tackle the way that they usually do. They were rallying to the football, I thought, in the running game the same way, but you look at the really, really big one, the 37-yarder by Wisner. What was the issue there? R. Mason Thomas has him dead to rights in the backfield. R. Mason Thomas not able to make the tackle. It almost was, it spun him out of the rush lanes, and then boom, there's a big thing over there. You get a third down where Robert Spears-Jennings has a guy in the Sark bread and butter, which is quick passes, screen passes, all that stuff. He has them dead to rights, misses the tackle. Robert Spears-Jennings basically put the whole game on his shoulders. Wasn't quite that bad after the game. It's like, Robert, you got to have an offense that can actually play football for it to be your fault as well. I'd put it on Bill Bedenbaugh's shoulders and DeMarco Murray's shoulders and Ben Arbuckle's shoulders, those 3 guys. But, it was an Oklahoma defense that I asked R. Mason after the game, were you guys almost pressing? Were you frustrated with stuff like that? And he hesitated to go with pressing, but you could tell that he was talking about, like, we were getting pretty frustrated, and that was not the normal thing. And when it comes to that, I mean, when it's hard for me to not just be like, when it is as blatant as Sark is calling the plays, BV is calling the plays, and one of them puts 23 points on the board against this Oklahoma defense, not good enough.
I asked Isaiah Satania the same question. When you're playing offense, this defense has been carrying you guys all year. They've been so great all year. They cover up a lot of mistakes. When they're not, like today, does that put more pressure on you guys offensively and you have to press? And he said, well, yeah, I guess that could be a part of the situation. So both sides of the ball were feeling it. And then poor special teams. Okay, let's turn it over to the special teams. Okay, there's a 75-yard touchdown on a punt return. Oops.
It really is shocking that there wasn't one facet of the game that went just exceptionally well for OU. I thought the coverage, the secondary had some lapses today.
They won the field goal battle. I thought they won the field goal kicking battle.
Sandell had a good day, which one of us picked him to be the Grozo winner. I'm just going to throw that back out there. But
The
besides,
Texas kicker, what, 55 and 56 or something like that? Come on, that guy doesn't have that range.
yeah, Mason Shipley, he did not have as good of a day, but doesn't matter. His team won. But that is the most shocking thing, that there really wasn't one position group aside from Sandell that had just
Right.
a banner day. And Texas, I mean, they're a good football team. I think they're better than their record shows. But they're a team that's flawed. This is far from a finished product, far from what we thought Texas was going to be. And they still just dominated every area today.
Did you hear what Sark said after the game? He said, last year, guys, we won the conference, went it to the championship game with a 7-1 record. He goes, right now, we're 1-1. I told everybody after the Florida game, we're only 0-1. Don't panic.
Steve Sarkisian also went out of his way to point out that Oklahoma's not scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 Red River rivalries, which, again, we're getting to the point where, gentlemen, you can't survive at this institution unless you're Porter Moser early. If you don't find a way to beat the Texas Longhorns, and Brent Venables has, outside of a miracle performance, where I don't know if anyone felt great about the coaching in that game, Brent Venables is not even putting competitive football teams on the field in the Cotton Bowl.
That's right.
The second half, shout out to the OU fans that hung out for longer than the punt return, but that
Yeah.
game was over as soon as Oklahoma had to punt, much less the punt return that went for a touchdown.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-bending how Oklahoma has cratered. Who are the 3 offensive coordinators? Jeff Lebby, Seth Luttrell, and
Ben
Ben
Arbuckle.
Arbuckle, your current guy. Arbuckle was supposed to come in and fix all that, and he scored twice as many points as the previous 2 guys combined, which is 6. Not good.
Well, Levy did put 34 points on the board in one of those games.
Yes,
so
Levy did have his quarterback one game. That's true.
Levy had his quarterback for one game.
Yeah, we're talking about the losses, but you're right.
But yeah, you get to it, and it is not gone well for Brent Venables in this game. And you look at it. Let's get to some just tried and true coaching philosophy, game management, all that stuff. Oklahoma up 6-3, and everything about this game is how do you respond from the momentum changes, right? Every coach, every year, doesn't matter what coach has talked about. Listen, virtually 0 Red River rivalries are going to go 100% one team's direction, right? There's going to be big swings. Can you pick yourself off the mat and deal with that? I thought Texas did a really, really good job. How many times have we come into the Cotton Bowl and one team puts out a stinker in the first half, and it's all about look up at the scoreboard at halftime, we're going to go into the locker room, we're going to breathe, we're going to tell everybody this one is about as poorly as possible, and we're only down 1 score, whatever it is. For Texas, it was 6-3 because they kicked the field goal. Oklahoma gets the ball back. What was it, 4.5 minutes left there to end the first half, and they hadn't consistently moved the ball, but you're sitting here going, okay, they need to do 2 things. They need to first off make sure they don't go a quick 3 and out and give Texas the chance to come down and take the lead,
Right.
go 2 for 1. But they also need to go and put some points on the board themselves. They've got 1 timeout. They're moving toward midfield. We get to the 2-minute timeout. Oklahoma's on the 45-yard line. 2-minute timeout, 1 timeout in their pocket, and they've got Tate Sandell, who's already been great in this game. They just need to get to about the 35, probably, to feel decent about their field goal range. But this is about, boys, you're not getting the ball back. It's 6-3. What a deflating moment that might be for Texas, because they just have their big explosive play. You hold them to a field goal. If you can go up, maybe even grab a touchdown, go into the locker room 13-3, get a stop, then you're the one putting the pressure on. And Brent Venables after the game says they were trying to leave no time for Texas. What an idiotic statement. Yeah, duh, you're trying to score
You
with,
run the
with
4-minute
no time.
offense. There's nothing wrong with running a
But
4-minute
there's
offense with
nothing-
4 minutes left.
There's nothing wrong with
that's
running
sound.
a 4-minute offense with 4 minutes left. Here's what happens. Timeout, 2-minute timeout. 1st and 15 on the OU 45. QB keeper for John Mateer.
Yeah, 1st and 15.
QB pass right to Deion Burks. First down, picks up.
Inbounds.
Then you get a Torrey Blaylock rush.
Up the middle.
John Mateer throws a pass that was not a first down. That he
Also not on the sidelines.
gets tackled with 29 seconds left. You got 1 timeout. The first mistake was to sub at all whatsoever, because the second you sub, we don't know this. Everything stops.
Yep.
Texas gets a chance to sub, so they're
Clock
going to milk.
doesn't stop.
They're
Clock
going to
keeps
milk that
going.
clock anyway. Oklahoma does. I know that what they said, they did not realize that this was happening.
No.
29 seconds elapses all the way down to 10 seconds. That's when they burn their timeout. Brent
Yeah.
Venables said they were trying to get one more pass to the boundary, see if they could take a shot. If not, they're going to kick a field goal. That one more pass to the boundary was supposed to come with like 25 seconds left, not
Yes.
with 10 seconds
Right.
left. because that gave them only one chance to take the shot. So now they've already bungled this anyway. And then it was compounded by the fact that Ben Arbuckle called a great play. Deion Burks was wide open over the middle of the field. John Mateer, it looked like, I don't know if he was just not confident in it initially, because it looked like he padded the football one extra beat basically, then threw it, and instead of delivering the kind of strike when they need it to Deion Burks, it ends up being an interception in the end zone. Texas needs it out at 6-3, and then they stayed on the field for every play but 4 the Texas offense did in the third quarter.
It was like Burks was on one goal post and the DB was on the other goal post, and he threw it to the DB like, whoa.
Just
like it didn't come off his hand right or something.
It is
maybe because his thumb hurts. I don't know.
A bad throw there. Obviously, like it. Regardless of how you had managed the clock, if John Mateer had thrown that ball, if you had called the timeout with 29 seconds, and you had gone through all the situationals or whatever you wanted there, didn't want to spike it on the third down.
Or work the sidelines.
Yeah,
I know Texas was trying to keep you inbounds, but you don't throw over the middle with one timeout.
If you don't sub with 29 seconds, you can do whatever you want, no matter what Texas is subbing or not. And they'd gotten Texas a couple of times with some tempo early.
That was a breakdown.
It was
all around
an absolute, total, unmitigated disaster in clock management. And it's that kind of stuff that happens to Brent Venables in the Cotton Bowl, because he's gotten out-coached 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah. And then the second half, like you said, Texas just comes to life, converts a bunch of third downs. Oklahoma had 5 rushing yards in the second half. It was a game. It was a tight game. They had 5 rushing yards in the second half. They averaged per rush 0.4 rushing yards per game. That includes the sacks, but you should be able to include sacks and come out with a bottom line ugly total of 2.5 yards, 3 yards per carry, not 0.4. And, obviously you get behind, you have to abandon the run, and the sacks start piling up. But I'm sorry, Bill Bedenbaugh, Ben Arbuckle, DeMarco Murray, whoever. 0.4 yards against Texas in the second half, rushing the football? That's inexcusable.
It's really bad. I mean, I wasn't on board last year for the disaster that game was, but I feel like this year's installment might be more disheartening than losing by 33 points, 31 points. Yeah. Just considering how broken that team was. Right. This is a number 6 OU team that came in and got whooped in the second half. Lost. I mean, it's just, a lot of it's just befuddling.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble coming to words with a lot of it, because this is all so shocking compared to what we saw against Auburn and Michigan. And who knows what those 2 teams will end up being, but both quality football teams, quality defenses, playmakers on offense that they had to mitigate, and did a good job doing so. So it really is shocking.
Well, I'm looking at a couple of scores right now. Auburn has taken Georgia down to the final. It's close. As we look at it right now, Georgia leads 13-10 in the fourth quarter, I believe. 4 minutes left in the game, I think. And USC took a paddle to Michigan today, 31-13. So maybe what we're seeing is Auburn and Michigan weren't really that good, and they come to Norman, Oklahoma, where it is an absolute tempest to try to play a game in that setting. And the fans do a great job with both of those games. Took Jackson Arnold out of the game, took Bryce Underwood out of the game. And you put those 2 things together, all of a sudden it starts looking like, well, maybe number 6 was a little high for this Oklahoma football team.
Well, you're seeing chaos all across college football. Indiana goes to Autzen today and wins. Penn State loses Drew Aller for the season. Northwestern wins.
We didn't study Oregon and Indiana. We haven't broken that down or anything. But that tells me right off the bat that Indiana kind of took the fight to Oregon. What we saw out here today was Oklahoma take the fight to Texas for 3 possessions and then give it right back to them and say, here, you can have the whole fight. We haven't seen that.
Well, what it felt
from
like,
the defense in particular.
What it felt like, and this is where we get into John Mateer's performance, and John Mateer comes out. His first interception was, I thought, just a flat-out overthrow of Jaron Kanik. I don't know if that was thumb-related or not. It's the kind of interception we've seen John Mateer throw before, missing high into the right, sailing it over. Oklahoma was able to force a field goal attempt that was a miss on that drive. Wasn't really a backbreaker for Oklahoma. I think that the one to Burks, which was just a flat-out miss, that was not high into the right. I don't know what that one was. That's a thumb-related one. You had that there. Mateer wasn't super on time with a lot of his stuff. He seemed like a half-beat slow, which
he hesitated a lot.
Yeah, he hesitated a lot, and I thought that
Maybe
was
he's rusty.
Well, I don't know if it's maybe a little bit rusty. I think it's the first time he's been under this kind of duress behind this offensive line a little bit. And then his final interception was another one that behind Isaiah Satanius, it pops up off Satanius' hands, and Texas is there to catch it. And I think that what you saw is that when it mattered most, Texas was able to rally and make the plays. How many times did we see the first possession of the game, Jaron Kanek just flat out drops the football. Yeah. A couple of possessions later, on a first down play, Isaiah Satania drops the football. I don't know if
everybody had nerves.
It wasn't going to be like a 15-yard completion, and it wasn't going to be this big like 30-yard touchdown or anything like that. But those are the drive starters, right? Every tempo offense, Oklahoma's running tempo early, tells you get the first down, and that's when you really kick into gear. And what you saw is Texas able to steady over and over again. In that third quarter, they came out of halftime, settled down, took the fight to Oklahoma, and I thought you saw a defense that was, in some ways, reacting to seeing that John Mateer is not 100% themselves, trying to make the big play. The little things Robert Spears-Jennings was talking about, Kendall Daniels was talking about the my bads, like we mentioned earlier. That is something where I think it kind of became some coverage buzz. It was Kendall Dolby who he had the wrong coverage on the opening touchdown, right? Because Peyton Bowen immediately looked at him and was like, what the heck was happening? To start with the third quarter, and then suddenly you have the tackling issues popped up. I think what you saw is for a defense that had been so steady in responding all year long, I think you saw the first little crack in that kind of invincibility for the defense. And I don't know if it was a direct result of John Mateer or not, but I think you saw that Oklahoma could not cope with the pressure here in the second half today. And that's concerning because we've seen Texas these last couple of years, or 2 of the last 3 years, come out and play bully ball. We've seen Texas, not this season, but the last 3 years, the 2 times they were heavy favorites, it's supposed to just bury Oklahoma. They've absorbed the early aggression, whether it be early turnovers or the fake field goal in 2022, stuff like that. And then they came out and just said, we're supposed to stomp a mud hole in you, and that's what we're going to do. And then today, they absorbed the early energy from Oklahoma's defense, overcame that, and put together the game plan. That's very, very concerning because Texas has been the mentally stronger team in this game. They've been the more physical team, no doubt, in the 4 years under Brent Venables, I think. And they've also been the healthier team in a bunch of these when you talk about quarterback specifically. So that's not necessarily anyone's fault when it comes to the shot that Dylan Gabriel took against TCU, and it's not Brent Venables' fault that John Mateer is coming off a thumb injury, but this is yet another offensive line that comes in banged up and could not hold up to the physicality of Texas, and that's not going to cut it here at the University of Oklahoma. It doesn't.
Not with the 6 games they've got left, starting next week at South Carolina. That's the beginning of an extremely brutal stretch. 5 of those 6 teams are ranked in the top 14 right now, so good luck with that. This game, I've been watching it since late 70s, and I've been covering it since 2004, so 22 years in a row. I've been in the stadium. I've covered this game. This game has a funny way of making good players do weird things and making unexpected, unknown, run-of-the-mill Jags, just a guy players do heroic things and unexpected things and spectacular things, and I think we saw a little bit of that today on both sides.
I agree, and it's just, I think this game is weird. Things like that do happen, but it's alarming in the sense that this offense from Texas was maybe more inconsistent coming into this game than any of the 6 teams left on the schedule for OU. Even with a so-so South Carolina squad, they still have a guy named Lenora Sellers who's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL at some point. I mean, there's not one bad offense they play the rest of the year, and that's scary. The defense has to figure it out. Just the drop-off from the first 5 games to today was, like we've talked about, it was staggering, and that needs to be sharpened up really quickly before this back end of the season because it could get rough.
Defense was not great in the second half today, but I still believe in this defense that this is a group that can figure it out. This is a group that can rebound, things like that. I do not believe in this offensive line. I do not believe in this offensive line whatsoever. I mean, this is a group that couldn't come together, can't run the ball. There's no point this year when they've played a living, breathing, actual defense where they have successfully looked like a group that can run the ball without the quarterback being a really, really dynamic, explosive piece of that. And you saw today that they were having trouble pass blocking. We've not seen this defense actually this offensive line, actually legitimately go on the road. We saw some procedural stuff today, and I thought John Mateer was a lot calmer under pressure as far as just trying to make things happen. But I think you saw today with the 5 sacks, there were just moments where he couldn't make that happen. His thumb is not magically going to be perfect starting next week, going on the road to South Carolina, anything like that. I do not think this offensive line is going to get much better, and I think that you're going to see, okay, for Oklahoma, this is going to be it the rest of the way. There's going to be a ton of pressure on John Mateer, and I just don't think that's a formula to consistently winning over. Does that mean they go into South Carolina and win? Yeah, absolutely. Can they beat an Ole Miss team that only beat Washington State by 3 today, 24-21? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this is oh my gosh, you look at it and Oklahoma's not going to be able to win a game the rest of the year or anything like that. But when you go game by game by game, this was the big question for Oklahoma coming out of that Auburn game. We knew that they were banged up there, which contributed to maybe some lack of creativity in the run game because they knew their offensive line couldn't move left to right, things like that. The limiting factor was going to be, could this offensive line get good enough to have consistent performances over and over and over again? And this Texas defensive line, is it really good? Yes, but I also think some of the stuff you saw today is just, if Oklahoma's going to be this one-dimensional, I don't think it takes an elite defense to bottle up Oklahoma. They couldn't really move Kent State off the football. And we talked about it. I said it was vibes of the Temple game a year ago, where it's like, yeah, you ran for $185. Congrats, you want a cookie? You were supposed to go out there and run for 350, and with Derek Simmons, we don't know the status of him, like you mentioned earlier. I just don't see this thing getting much better up front. No Logan Howland today. That was huge as Luke Baklanko had to come in, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, all this pressure just kind of leaked through and came from the right side, because Texas didn't have to pick and choose what matchup they wanted. They were getting into the backfield and pressuring John Mateer.
They were doing what Brent Venables talked about earlier in the week, just whip the man in front of you. Just beat that guy in front of you. Let's play man-on-man football. That's what Texas was doing. They were overwhelming the Oklahoma offensive line, and we've said Texas got a really good defense. I'm gonna back that up, but it's like you said. We examined the numbers against Kent State, and Florida State had 600 yards rushing against Kent State. Oklahoma had 100 and what was it?
Almost 500 yards rushing for Florida State versus 185 for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We've known something like this was coming, was brewing for this offense, and I don't know what their solution is moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot of bit concerning just at this point in the season that they haven't found a true identity on the line. And there is talent in the backfield. You look at Torrey Blaylock. Whenever he gets space, he looks like a really good running back, and I think he's going to be a really good running back for the Sooners. What did he get? 1 carry tonight?
Yeah, 1 carry, and it was not 1 carry. It was
1 11-yard carry.
Yeah, 1 11-yard carry, 1 target that he dropped, and then 1 whiff block. That was the Jaden Ott day. I can give you that right now.
So I thought we were talking about Blaylock. My bad.
Yeah, there is talent in the backfield, but with how just disheveled the offensive line looks, it's going to be hard for them to get anything moving. Mateer, like we talked about, didn't have a great day. There's no way to sugarcoat that, but I don't know many quarterbacks that would have had a great day with how under duress he was, very little time. It would have been hard. Michael Hawkins, Whit Neubauer, I don't think either of them would have had a great day. No. It would have taken an awesome quarterback fully healthy to have a great day behind what we saw from the line.
What
today.
Oklahoma needed today was not a great day from its starting quarterback with an injured thumb or a heroic performance from its backup quarterback. They needed their defense to stand up and play like their defense is supposed to play. They needed the special teams to be better than a 75-yard punt return, where the guy broke 3 tackles before he ever got going. And, you put those two things together, what chance did the offense have again today? Zero.
Well, I think the most concerning bit is that part of what makes OU Texas so much fun and such a fantastic game, the atmosphere, all that stuff, is that truly this is one of those games every year where it feels like you can go through the years and pick out one guy that maybe they're not a total unknown or things like that, but who had Jalil Farouk going supernova a couple of years ago? Who had Dylan Gabriel running for over 100 yards a couple of years ago? There's always some unlikely heroes, and Oklahoma got that early. Think about their second scoring drive. You had Carson Kent, who's not been a huge piece of the passing game, have a big-time catch on 3rd down where he gets smoked and holds onto the football. Later on that drive, you had Giovanni Gibson with the most no play of this whole thing, where it's a wide receiver pass. It's initially not there. Texas plays it really well. They get to Giovanni. Giovanni's going down. I know that he played high school quarterback, but you know what you don't want your wide receiver to do? Throw the ball when he's going down. It's a completion, all that stuff.
Just ask Bauer Sharp.
They're able to get out there, and they show us the most heavenly look I've ever seen from an Oklahoma offense was just Jaden Jackson and David Stone, and Jaden Jackson's basically line up at tight end and running an insert and just delivering a car crash at the point of attack.
He took the guy's soul.
They pick it up on 4th and 1. What do they have to do? They have to settle for a field. Like, you got those performances early. I thought Satania looked really lively early. Satania looked like that guy that was like, man, he's not CeeDee Lamb, but we're going to look back and be like, you guys remember the Isaiah Satania OU Texas game? That's what it felt like early, and then the offense had a total dud in the second half. And when you can't seize that momentum, it felt like Oklahoma was the underdog today, like a big underdog, not this, lines moving back and forth. And all Texas had to do was withstand it, and then the cream rose to the top in the third quarter. And it's been a trend in this game. And as we know, this game can define careers at Oklahoma. And Brent Venables has a lot of season left, but he's been awful, just flat out awful against Texas, and that's not going to fly.
Carson shot from the sidelines with the camera and with the big camera. And he got some great highlights. Check those out on the website, Sooners on SI, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. Oklahoma, and we were talking about this. I said at some point tonight, Oklahoma had highlights. They had plenty of highlights offensively. They did some really good things. And then second half, in the shell. And part of it was the defense, being on the field for 14 plays, 12 plays, 13 plays, those 3 straight drives. And I think that kind of took the life out of the offense. I don't know if it should have or could, or if that happens frequently, but it looked like the offense went from being on the verge of punching in a bunch of points and stacking up some really good possessions to, we don't know what to do. We can't run the football. We can't protect the quarterback. We can't catch the football. We can't throw the football. That's what it looked like the offense became, from this playmaking, guys doing all kinds of different stuff, to nobody knew what to do. Nobody had any answers. So weird.
Yeah, I think most of those good highlights you were talking about were first half.
Early on.
I know I saved more videos from the first half than the second half. I mean, it just seemed a lot more crisp. They weren't getting the touchdowns to account for them, but they were moving the ball down the field to where I thought it would be this, okay, the winning team's going to only score 20 points, but it's going to be like 20-17 come down to the wire, and that just didn't happen. It was stagnant. I found myself shooting more underthrows, overthrows, runs like over 1 yard, -3 yards. And it was just a rough day.
Had every making of a Red River Rock fight early. One coaching staff adjusted, the other did not.
Right.
And that is what happens. That's the difference. Now, I guess I don't know if this is good news or bad news. Good news or bad news, with about a minute and a half left in Baton Rouge. LSU's up 20-10 on South Carolina. So that's a team that came off a bye themselves, despite the fact Oklahoma had a double bye. Again, Oklahoma had 2 weeks to prepare for this football game.
We're hearing today that Brent Venables said, no, we're not going to over-prepare for Texas. We're going to prepare for Kent State, and we're going to do our usual work during the bye week. I heard that a couple times today. If that's true, and the reason being, well, you don't disrespect the game no, you just disrespected the Texas Longhorns. If that's true, then you disrespected Texas in the chief rivalry game of your entire 12-game season. You're not preparing for Texas in the bye week ahead of Kent State. You're not preparing for Texas during the week of Kent State. That's coaching malfeasance, if that's true.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point, and I know that the coaches have to do the coach stuff. The whole point of we prepare for every team is the same. It shouldn't be that. It's we prepare for every team like it's Texas. You put in the same energy every week, like it's Texas, and they've come out, and this is a Texas team. You knew they were going to be foam at the mouth. And I thought they matched that early. They were not able to sustain, and the championship strain to defend the standard crap, the standard for this program under Brent Venables. Give me a break. I don't want to hear that until you can go, and you got to win 9 games before you earn that thing back. And the good news for Oklahoma is they're 5 games of the way there, so they've taken care of business, but. We've not seen any of that, and the players we know what the standard is. These guys don't know what the standard is. None of these guys have been a part of an Oklahoma team that's been to the College Football Playoff. That's
true.
That is not what this group has experienced. They've experienced disappointment, embarrassment, or they've transferred in for somewhere else. Because this Brent Venables, again, for Brent Venables a couple years ago to win 10 games and not make the Big 12 tournament or a Big 12 championship game is a once in a decade. You win 10 games and beat Texas, and you're not a participant in Arlington. That happens once a decade. But it was Brent Venables. And the other 2 seasons were first since 1998. And now you've come your best season by far. Everything looks good. Your defense looks like finally the defense you promised, and you get run over in the third quarter and the fourth quarter against Texas. It's inexcusable for Brent Venables in Oklahoma. Good news for them, though, is that they can bounce back next week.
I'll tell you who has almost been to the college football playoff. Former Oklahoma quarterback Chandler Morris.
He's the only one.
He played in 2020 was his freshman year. They went to the playoff in 2019, so it was that close.
There's
He's, of course, playing for Virginia now, but
there was a time.
it's been a while, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, there's a time, John, where like we would talk about, and it's not a far away ago time. It was a couple years ago that any player in college softball who has won a national championship either plays for Oklahoma or transferred for Oklahoma. We are now like to the end of it. Like any player that had played for an Oklahoma team that went to a college football playoff is like out. They're gone. They're done. So it's not good. Not good. They got to bounce back.
Not even Chandler Morris played for a college football playoff for Oklahoma. That's how long it's been.
Good news for Oklahoma, though. Still 12-team playoff. Still plenty of road to go. And like we've covered throughout, sparingly throughout the pod, it's up and down all throughout college football. But this Oklahoma offensive line's got to get fixed, and they got to figure out a way to not put 100% of this offense on John Mateer's right arm or his right thumb.
Season's not over. We've talked about this. You lose this game, you've got one conference loss. You've got 6 opportunities, not a gauntlet, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Joe Louis waiting in the wings to pound your brains in. You've got 6 opportunities to get back in the discussion for the SEC championship and the college football playoff. I can't believe I just said that after having watched this. But hey, fix your run game, right? Get busy, get your offensive line coach in there, get your run game fixed. Figure out who your best 5 blockers are, because it continues to be a mix and match no matter who's healthy and who's not. Don't put too much on your quarterback. Get back to playing defense the way you were, and you know what? Maybe you do beat South Carolina and Columbia next week. And you know what? After that, maybe you start beating teams like Tennessee, and maybe you start beating in Alabama and Tuscaloosa. And all of a sudden you look up and you're in a good shape for the season. It's like Brent said after he said it a lot more eloquently than I did. He said we've got a lot of season left to play.
There's a lot of seasons left to play. I'm not saying it's going to turn to last year, but Brent Venables has to Brent Venables has to
be honest, it could
prove to us that he can go and win some of these games before we get there's a lot of season left from Brent Venables, and he's not done that. And it's part of why coming into the season I picked him to go 8-4 and to win out through the first month and come into this Texas game. The fact of the matter is that things had changed. Texas did not look good offensively against Ohio State a week ago against Florida. I know they come in reeling and with all this motivation to get things right, and Sark was feeling frisky in the post game, but you have to be able to handle that stuff. And this was one of the worst offensive lines that you're going to see in SEC play. Like, just fact of the matter that they played against, and they couldn't out-duel them. Now you're going to go to Columbia. Good luck with that. You better learn how to tackle Lenore Sellers. If you couldn't tackle Arch, how do you think that tackling Lenore Sellers is going to go? Poorly. It's going to go poorly, John.
One of the players said, like, he's bigger than I thought, or something like that. In
Yeah.
the post-game interview, like, he's big and strong.
R. Mason said that he's.
Was it R. Mason?
Yeah, it's R. Mason. Or was it Kendall?
I think it was Kendall.
Maybe it's Kendall Daniels.
not
Excuse
sure.
me. I was over for RSJ, R. Mason, Kendall Daniels,
Yeah.
and they're just like, yeah, he's big and strong. No duh, boys. This is the SEC. That's what
He's
that
a
thing
Manning.
is.
What'd you expect?
That's what that's supposed to be. So Oklahoma, 23-6 losers. Brent Venables embarrassing the Cotton Bowl yet again. He's used to that long face. He's used to. Steve Sarkisian's used to waiting on Brent Venables. Is the worst part. Steve, as I was walking by, because the press conference gets over and we talk to players on the concourse, and you guys stick around for the very end of the press conference. I'm walking by Steve, and Steve was, you could tell, he was just like looking at the watch, like, can this get going? Like, we need to get that thing done.
He was agitated.
Although he would like Brent Venables to get extended.
Exactly. He was snickering over there at times. Like, I can't believe this is happening again, kind of thing. That's what it looked like. I'm just saying.
That's what the Brent
By the
Venables
way, welcome
experience
to
has been in
the new
Cotton
press
Bowl.
box.
The new press box is great.
South end of
Nice.
South end of the Cotton Bowl. We're no longer in the danky suites. We're in the actual brand new press box.
It was fantastic. So we'll go back. We've only seen this game once, and it happened live, obviously. We'll break it down. We'll have more thoughts for you on Wednesday, per usual. Probably everyone will have taken a deep breath and all that stuff. I would just like you all to remember that Brent Venables got embarrassed today. Like, when you all start thinking playoff again and all that stuff, let's take this thing to South Carolina and figure out if Oklahoma can get a win there before you start to rebuild that thing. OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com is the website. I wrote about John Mateer. John Mateer, no excuses today. He said it was all mental, 100%. I would say it was all on your offensive line, John Mateer, plus a few errant throws. But that story's up on the website, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. Mateer shouldered the blame for the offense. Venables shouldered the blame for the defense. That's what Hoover wrote about. If you care about the PFF snap counts, all that stuff, Ryan Aber got that bad boy up there. And you know the drill. Sunday, Tons of content coming to the website, OklahomaSoonersOnSide.com. If you want to watch any of the videos, Who's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. We'll be back in Norman Monday night.